My dad slapped the table and said that he would destroy his archenemy, merge his company, make him bankrupt, and make him kneel in front of me and cry bitterly. I applauded desperately and shouted, "Dad is mighty." My dad gave me a key and patted me on the shoulder. "Father and son fight together. Go get him." In the middle of the night on this day, I sneaked into the arch-enemy's villa in the dark. I did everything that should be done. Half a year later, my dad's archenemy really knelt in front of him. My dad has an archenemy in the business field. After being at odds for a year, he suffered countless losses at the hands of the other party. There will be a project in 2 days that requires tripartite discussions. This time my dad finally couldn't stand it and said that he would fight his opponent. So, he gave me a key and patted my shoulder earnestly. "The pupil surpasses the master. You go and deal with him. Make him unable to take care of the company. For this project, my dad is determined to get it. For my dad's career and for my future." I accepted the mission in a critical moment. Carrying the key obtained by my dad, I went straight to the Chase villa. This is not the first time I have been to Chase's villa. 3 months ago, my dad lost a big order to Chase. So he took me and rushed here angrily. Originally, he wanted to hit Chase secretly. But he wasn't there. There was no way. We could only pull out all the leeks in his backyard and went home and made a meal of leek dumplings. Eating the dumplings, my dad and I fell into deep thought. Why are the leeks in his house especially fragrant? At this moment, I also fell into deep thought. What am I doing here? Deal with him. How to deal with him? By imagination? Or turn off the power of his refrigerator. Then when the food spoils, he will have a bad diarrhea? I am so clever. Chase. With an opponent like me, how can you win? Just after I unplugged the refrigerator power supply, suddenly, I heard someone in the room groaning in pain faintly. Although I was a bit guilty, judging from the sound, the person in the room was very uncomfortable. I was really afraid that someone would die and I would become a murderer. Reluctantly, I opened the door. A pungent smell of alcohol hit me. I coughed a few times. "I want water." The simple and direct order, spoken in a magnetic voice, was actually a bit pleasant to hear. "Well, considering that your voice is so pleasant, I will fulfill this little wish of yours." I poured water and handed it to him. He took it weakly and took a sip, making a few struggling groans. He seemed to be in pain somewhere. I asked, "What's wrong with you? Do you need medicine? Where is the medicine?" Before he answered, my phone rang. I hurriedly pressed the mute button. But my dad's powerful voice still sounded very loudly. "Smile. How is it going?" I whispered. "I'm doing it now. Dad. Don't worry. I will definitely make Chase miserable this time." My dad said with relief, "It still has to be my daughter. With you, Chase is doomed." I chuckled. As soon as I turned my head, I met a pair of dark eyes. I was so scared that I shuddered. Ghost. Ghost. I didn't even pick up my phone. I turned around and ran outside. But the next moment, my wrist was grabbed. The other party said coldly, "I am a ghost. You are a thief. Isn't it just right?" The light was turned on and Chase and I stared at each other. "Tell me, why are you in my house?" I showed him an awkward but polite smile. "Well, I got lost. Just when I wanted to leave, I heard you groaning in pain again. I am a good young person with correct values. When I see others in trouble, I can't just stand by and do nothing. You don't have to thank me. This is what we young pioneers should do." I picked up my phone and waved at Chase. "It's getting late. You go on sleeping. Let's talk another day." Chase smiled meaningfully. When I opened the door and took a step out, I heard Chase say, "Hello. Is this the police station? There is a thief in my house." "Shut up." I quickly turned over and pounced on him and covered his mouth. He was pressed under me and let out a muffled groan. "Don't tell me." Looking closely, Chase's facial features are so superior. Even his skin is rarely so good. So enviable. Chase. I smiled and lay on top of him. I'll let you go. But don't shout. Just at this moment. A warning sound came from the phone. When couples are flirting, they dare to report false alarms. If there is a next time, administrative detention will be imposed. The phone hung up and Chase's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. If you don't get up soon, the charge will change from burglary to robbery and murder. I smiled. I came to visit. Without evidence. It's meaningless to say it. Chase also smiled. He said in a low voice, there is surveillance in the living room. As a repeat offender, you should know this. Next. Chase and I had a long and short negotiation. Both sides took a step back. There is no way for the nanny at home to come recently. You stay and be a nanny for a month. I won't pursue a night's matter, Chase said. My eyes lit up. I was worrying about having no way to get close to Chase. Now he actually took the initiative to issue an invitation. It's really like getting a pillow when you are sleepy. Okay. I'll do a good deed to the end and see you off all the way. I'll burn for towels of paper for you next him sweeping day. Chase sneered. You agreed so readily. But do you know what specific things an Annie should do? I listed them. It's really ridiculous. Haven't I seen pigs walk even if I haven't eaten pork? Not stupid. Chase said. Suddenly he began to unbutton his shirt. My gaze was fixed on his slender fingers. Then it was his collarbone. And then, you. The service scope of an Annie doesn't include. Chase let out a mocking laugh. I was stunned. I looked at him through my fingers. Then I gasped. Broad shoulders and a perfect waist-up ratio. But at this moment, what attracted my attention was not his curves but the unhealed wound on his back. You are injured? So he was groaning just now because of the pain from the wound? He casually handed me the medicine box and ordered, help me apply the medicine. I took the medicine box with trembling hands. His injury seemed to be a knife wound. I don't know how he got it. The wound was still very fresh. At this moment, with his movement, it bled again. You are injured. And you still drink alcohol? What a tough person. You are a nanny. Not my mom. You are being too nosy. Chase sat upright. Apply the medicine. Cleaning the wound and applying the medicine. A wicked thought flashed through my mind for a moment. If I pressed like this, would he pass out from the pain? Then in the tripartite discussion in today's. Without Chase there, my dad will definitely be sure to win. Whoever intentionally causes injury to another person and causes serious injury shall be sentenced to fixed-term imprisonment of not less than 3 years but not more than 10 years. Above my head came Chase's cold warning. I swallowed. Who would intentionally hurt you? Is this how you talk to your savior? I stood in front of him with my hands on my hips. Chase. One should know how to repay kindness. Oh? He lowered his head to button up his shirt, and then raised his eyebrows and looked at me. How do you want me to repay a person who breaks into a private house? I was choked by him. He can't say 3 sentences without mentioning the law. Is it great to have studied law for a few years? What kind of behavior? Chase put on his clothes and expressionlessly ordered me. I'm hungry. I want porridge. I looked at the time. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. Even other people's nannies can't make porridge for their employers in the middle of the night. Why? Was my statement not clear enough just now that makes you feel wrong to make porridge in the middle of the night? Chase raised his eyebrows and looked at me. Then he pointed to the ceiling and reminded me that the camera clearly recorded the fact that I broke into a private house. Then I'll remind you again. He bent down and looked at me. His eyes were clear but very annoying. If you are caught, your reputation will be damaged. Your dad's company will be even worse. Then it will be completely contrary to your purpose of coming here tonight. Damn it. I can't argue with him. And what he said makes sense. I stood in the kitchen making noises. Where is the rice? Where is the pot? How do I turn on the gas stove? I stood in the kitchen and looked blankly at Chase, who was sitting on the sofa waiting for food. I didn't mean to. I really don't know how. But making porridge is not difficult. I am confident that I can learn it. Chase walked over expressionlessly and mocked. Are you the nanny or am I the nanny? What do you mean? If you are a nanny. Chase suddenly stopped in front of me. And you can't provide cooking services. Then what other service items do you have? His face was very close. If it were before, I would probably be thinking about from what angle I could swing my fist to knock out his front teeth. But now, I blushed for some reason. Chase also noticed it and laughed. I found that he looked quite good-looking when he laughed. But in the next moment, I became sober again. I can't be deceived by his beauty trap. I have a mission. Chase went to make porridge. I stood outside the kitchen door and actually felt a moment of guilt. When the porridge was served, I took 2 bowls and sat face to face with him. I took a sip and my eyes lit up. Not bad. I didn't expect your cooking skills to be so good. Chase looked at me meaningfully. It would be great if there were some side dishes. I drank desperately. The purpose was to finish Chase's porridge so that he had no porridge to drink. Chase ground his teeth in disgust. Put down the bowl. Stood up and looked down at me. Wash the bowl. He went upstairs. Then he thought of something. I get up at 6 in the morning. I hope to see breakfast and a clean and tidy home. As he said that, he disappeared at the door of the room. 5 the next day. At 6 o'clock sharp. Good morning, Chase. I opened the door. Now it's your customized wake-up service. After I finished speaking, I found that the bed was empty. Chase was coming out of the bathroom wrapped in a bath towel. I was stunned immediately. My eyes were fixed on his 8-pack ABS. Subconsciously, I swallowed. Still want to look? Chase stood there generously and raised his eyebrows. There will be one more charge: indecency. I rolled my eyes. Who is indecent to you? With your looks, I can find 2 for 1,000 yuan. Inside the door, I seemed to hear Chase grinding his teeth. A quarter of an hour later, Chase came downstairs in a suit. I silently took back my wild words just now. With his condition, I can't find 2 for 1,000 yuan. This is the breakfast you prepared? Chase stood by the table and looked at me. I cooked it myself. I didn't sleep all night. I pointed to my dark circles. If you are not satisfied, then do it yourself? Chase didn't speak. He sat down and took a sip. Immediately, his brows frowned tightly. Putting poison is murder. Failing to poison to death is attempted murder. Check on your phone how many years you will be sentenced. He got up gracefully, grabbed his coat and was about to go out. Where are you going? I chased after him. He stopped and looked at me. Is there something wrong? Or can't bear to let me go? I was a bit guilty. Remember to come back for dinner at night. I will cook seriously. He looked at me. His brows moved slightly. A bit surprised. Also, I coughed. What do you like to eat? Tomorrow is the negotiation meeting. Tonight I must make Chase come back. And I must also think of a way to make him unable to be present at the scene tomorrow. Then my dad will surely win. I am allergic to seafood. I am not picky about anything else. After he finished speaking, he looked at me solemnly and closed the door and left. Allergic to seafood? God helps me. I immediately went to pick a bunch of seafood. But on second thought, I felt it was too obvious. Chase wouldn't eat it. So, I bought seafood sauce. Following the video, I studied for dishes. From noon to night. After several failures, I finally succeeded. If you don't succeed, you will be benevolent. I put the anti-allergy medicine in my pocket. When Chase starts to have an allergic reaction later, I will immediately give him 2 pills. This way, it will not only ensure that he is not in life-threatening danger, but also because of his discomfort, he will not be able to attend tomorrow's meeting. I am simply a genius schemer. At 7 o'clock, Chase came home on time. I eagerly ran to the door to welcome him. Chase. You are back. Then I neatly placed his slippers in front of him and took his briefcase. Have you seen the scene of a certain housewife welcoming her husband back home from work? I studied it seriously for half an hour today. Chase looked at me in surprise. I remember you majored in folk music. Right? Did you also learn male superiority and female inferiority, by the way? I was so angry that the corners of my mouth trembled. In front of you, Chase. I unconsciously feel inferior. Chase laughed. He walked past me and said leisurely, I saw a little girl in a bar last year. She grabbed a drunk's hair and beat him under the sofa. He looked at me with a half smile. You should learn from that little girl. I looked at him in surprise. Because he was talking about me. Last summer vacation, I went to a bar with my sisters. My sister was dressed very coolly. She was verbally humiliated and teased by a drunk. I was so angry that I beat that person up. Were you there that time? He gave me a dissatisfied look and didn't speak. Did I forget something important? I quickly called my sister and asked her about the bar last year. Chase was there. Don't you remember? My sister said inexplicably. The man you beat up later found more than a dozen brothers. Don't you remember? I was very confused. The reason why I dared to hit someone that day was firstly because I was really angry. Secondly, it was because I was drunk. It was Chase who solved it later. When he sent us home, you also asked for his phone number and said that you would invite him to dinner the next day. I don't remember. What a bloody hero saves the beauty scene. I turned around and looked at Chase more guiltily. Then I silently put down the phone. My sister was still yelling on the phone. You also kissed him forcibly. Said he was so handsome and asked if he wanted to be your live-in son-in-law. I decisively cut off the phone. What did I do? I actually forcibly kissed my savior. The most crucial thing is that I don't remember it at all. What a sin. What are you doing? Chase looked at me, looking guilty. Did you do something wrong to me? As he said that, he put a book on criminal law on the table and nodded with his slender fingers. It's for you. Reading more books is not harmful. I swallowed. I watched him pick up a piece of beef and put it in his mouth. Allergic to seafood. Criminal law. Savior? 6 don't eat. I snatched Chase's chopsticks and pinched his chin. Spit. Spit it out. He frowned and looked at me with a sullen face. Spit it. He didn't spit. He made a whining sound. In a moment of heat, I actually bent down and kissed his mouth. Heaven and earth are witnesses. I didn't want to molest him again. I simply wanted to snatch out that piece of beef. Fortunately, I succeeded. Why are you so slow to react when I tell you to spit? I threw the beef into the trash can and glared at him. Chase didn't react. He looked at me expressionlessly. But from the corner of his mouth to the tip of his ear, he was instantly covered in red. Like a red-hot lobster. What's wrong with you? Are you allergic? I quickly broke to anti-allergy pills and gave them to him. Is the allergy so serious? This wasn't eaten. I trembled and put 2 pills into his mouth. 10 years in prison. 20 years in prison, floated above my head. Whew. I am a good young person. One wrong step leads to eternal regret. I am not allergic to seafood. Chase suddenly stood up. The chair behind him clanked and fell down. I still have a video conference. He went upstairs without looking back. But I was relieved. Because he walked with a very steady pace. It was just that his breathing was not very stable. I thought about it and still felt that the problem should be talked about openly. Pushing the door and going in. Chase had returned to normal. I found that he was not in a video conference. I boldly said, I want to talk to you about something. His eyes flashed. He folded his arms and leaned on the chair, waiting for me to speak. I deliberately put seafood sauce in the beef. But I realized my mistake. Really? Chase's mouth curved. What else? And I didn't mean to take advantage of you just now. I was just in a hurry and flustered. I didn't mean anything else. Chase's face fell. His breath was obviously colder than before. Have you finished? If you have finished, go out. I went out with my head drooping. I wanted to call my dad. I had failed the important task entrusted to me. I couldn't do it. Just at this moment, I suddenly thought of another way. Since I can't beat him, why not join him? I happily made 2 more dishes and carried them upstairs. Chase, it's time to eat. This time it's clean. There is no seafood sauce at all. Chase didn't speak and looked at me quietly. What's wrong? He was puzzled. He pointed to the computer. As I turned around, dozens of eyes in the computer were looking at me roundly. On their foreheads were uniformly written the word gossip. Sorry to disturb. I chuckled. Chase. Who is this? I heard someone gossip and ask him. Sorry. I'm sorry to disturb everyone too. I am the nanny invited by Mr. Sue. I quickly explained. I am really embarrassed today. After saying that, I quickly went out. But when I closed the door, I heard Chase explain, a friend. Not an Annie. 7 immediately. A group of ambiguous laughs came out. Of course not a nanny. This is Mrs. Sue. Madam is so cute. She and Chase are really a good match. My heart missed a beat. I hurried and went to the kitchen in a panic. But their laughter and Chase's words, not an Annie, still echoed in my ears. When I opened the oven without paying attention, I forgot to wear gloves. When the pain hit, I realized that I had been scalded. As my hand loosened, kitchen utensils and pastries fell all over the floor. After a clattering sound, Chase came downstairs. For the first time, on his calm face, I saw a flustered emotion. He took my hand. Strangely, the palm that was clearly numb from the pain suddenly became cool and refreshing. He gently rinsed it with cold water and comforted me softly. It's okay. I'll take you to the hospital. Perhaps because we were too close and his breath came too quickly and gently brushed past my ear. The pool of water in my heart gently rippled. In a trance, when he said he would take me to the hospital, I automatically followed him. I didn't pay attention to the threshold under my feet. With a plop, I fell straight forward. Fortunately, he heard the noise and quickly turned around and supported me. In this way, I fell into his arms. A mint fragrance came to my nose. Immediately after, his strong arm was holding me. His broad chest gave me great cushioning. I quickly stood up. But the pain in my ankle made me gasp involuntarily. He cared. What's wrong? I was on the verge of tears and pointed to my ankle. It seems to be sprained. I just said that being a genius needs to pay a certain price. Right? Why am I so unlucky recently? He straightened me up. Suddenly, my body was lifted off the ground. Before I could react, he had already picked me up horizontally. I stared at him. His extremely handsome face looked even more secure from this angle. No need. The intimate contact made it difficult for me to breathe. My voice was extremely soft. You just had surgery. I can go by myself. He ignored me. He opened the door and carried me all the way to the hospital. After the examination, it was just a simple sprain and scald. After applying medicine and bandaging, it would be fine with rest. I haven't been to this private hospital much. But from the conversation between Chase and the doctor just now, the two seemed to be friends. Chase, you really don't care about your life for the sake of beauty. How long has it been since your surgery? For such strenuous exercise, it's better to hire someone to do it next time. They were outside the ward. Chase's voice was very soft, but I still heard it. I'm just afraid that she will get hurt. I quickly called his name. When he came in, I felt a little guilty. Can you show me your wound? He was very close. He raised his eyebrows and said, Don't look at things that are not proper to look at. I simply lifted his clothes. There was blood on the newly bandaged gauze. My injury was actually not too serious. I could take a taxi to the hospital by myself. But seeing a person who had no blood relationship at all not caring about himself for me, I was very touched. Thank you. He smiled. This time, it was a very pure smile. It's okay. In this way, the two of us wounded people could only sympathize with each other at home. Lying on the big bed, I called my dad. Dad, I'm sorry. There is a little situation here. I'm afraid I will fail your important task. He asked me what was wrong. I said it was just a little scald and sprain. After comforting me and telling me to have a good rest, he laughed. Your mom and I are traveling outside. Smile. You are a great hero of our family. Have a good rest. Dad will come to see you as soon as he comes back. Even through the phone, I could imagine my dad grinning with his big teeth. By the way, you have to take good care of Chase. Only when he is healthy can he give me continuous projects. 9 little cripple. What do you want to eat? My hand was injured. Naturally, cooking was left to him. I thought that a person as busy as him wouldn't cook. Unexpectedly, he looked quite professional when he tied an apron and held a spatula. I am not a little cripple. I stared at him and gave a malicious smile. If you dare to call me that again, believe it or not, I'll poke your wound? He raised his eyebrows and glanced at me. You can barely walk. I said that he was also sick. So don't bother. Just order takeout. But he ignored me. After being busy in the kitchen for a long time, the food he made was quite delicious. When he ate, he chewed slowly. He looked gentle and polite. He didn't talk much. But when he occasionally looked at me, that gentle smile seemed to carry an electric current and directly hit my softest hurt. When he was working, I would accompany him. When he was free, we would watch TV together. Sometimes I would watch suspense and reasoning shows with him. He would also watch comedies or romances with me. In the afternoon, I wanted to take a bath. But because it was inconvenient, I lingered at the bathroom door and didn't go in. I would be careful not to let the wound get wet. But now it's difficult for me to even enter the bathroom. There is too much water. As a little cripple, it's too easy to fall. Fortunately, he was very careful and carefully helped me in. After taking a bath, I opened the door and saw that he was still at the door. I was stunned. He held out his hand, afraid that you might fall. Do you want to rest now? My face was flushed red. I was only wearing a pajamas now, and there was nothing inside. Maybe seeing the blush on my face, he subconsciously looked at me. His earlobes were slightly red. It seemed that he also understood something. He coughed softly and spoke a bit unnaturally. Or, do you want to go by yourself? I'll go by myself. Just as I was about to leave, he called me from behind. Your hair is not dry. Be careful not to catch a cold. After saying that, he took a hairdryer and blew my hair. His movements were a bit clumsy. His fingertips occasionally brushed past my earlobes. A strange feeling emerged. In the mirror, he and I seemed to be in a pink bubble. He lowered his head. His eyebrows and eyes were serious. His handsome face made me unable to resist wanting to kiss him gently. And then, I actually did this. With a smacking sound, a cool and soft touch came. His pupils enlarged in front of me. I didn't even react myself. There was a thunder in my mind. His earlobes were bright red. He stared at me. But there was a smile on his lips. I stammered to explain. For a long time, I only managed to say one sentence, I'm crazy. He smiled. My heart beat uncontrollably like the rhythm muffle of song. Help! Who can save me? I didn't expect that someone really came to save me. 10 footsteps and the voice of a middle-aged woman talking came from outside. Chloe. My son should be at home now. You sit in the living room for a while. I'll go and call him. After saying that, a woman who looked 40 or 50 years old with delicate makeup appeared in front of chastened me. After a moment of astonishment, he called out Mom. I quickly stood up. Auntie. Hello. Ansu frowned and looked at me. That look made me uncomfortable all over. How can a nanny share a bathroom with you? Chase explained. She is not a nanny. Ansu's eyes rolled. When she looked at me again, her expression became much gloomier. Since she is not a nanny, it's even worse to stay at your house. It's getting dark. Don't send her home earlier. A girl who doesn't go home at night has such a bad reputation. Chase's face darkened. She is injured. There is no one at home. He said that when he was injured, I was taking care of him. Now that I was injured and lived at his house and was taken care of by him, it was only natural. It was okay if he didn't say it. But as soon as he said it, Ansu's anger rose rapidly. What? You actually take care of her? I took care of you so hard until now. Is it for you to take care of women? Chase frowned. What's the relationship between these two things? Ansu kept pestering and started to be sarcastic to me again. But Chase always protected me. Ansu became more and more angry. The two quarreled. In the end, Ans gave up. She glared at me. Forget it. Chase. Come here. I'll introduce a friend to you.